All right. So Eleanor Roosevelt fought very hard to expand New Deal programs. She wanted more aid for the poor. She wanted more help. She wanted bigger programs. So she was always behind the scenes pushing for more. But there's something else that she really fought for, and that was human rights, or we would say civil rights. I couldn't get civil out, so I just civil rights. And civil rights has more and more come to mean only about race. And actually, civil rights is about rights for everybody. But we think mostly about, especially in this era, it's going to be for rights for African Americans. But she really pushed. One of the biggies was an anti-lynching bill. There were all these lynchings in the South, mostly of black men, and nobody was ever arrested. Now, murder is a state crime, and nobody's arrested for it. Or if they were arrested, they were immediately acquitted. And so what groups like the NAACP wanted, and Eleanor really pushed for too, was a bill, a federal law against lynching. So the federal government could at least try them. And never happened. Franklin Roosevelt could not, he did not have the guts to go against Southern Democrats. He needed them to support Social Security. Social politics can be messy. You have to make decisions. And that was a decision he made. It wouldn't be until 1964 with the Civil Rights Act. So it's a long time down the road. But she was a tireless fighter. And not only that, she was a feminist. And a tireless fighter for women's rights. And so she pushed Franklin to get more and more people in the New Deal, women in the New Deal. In fact, Franklin Roosevelt would be the first person to have a cabinet secretary who was a woman. A major issue, especially if it was the Department of Labor. They would be someone that Eleanor Roosevelt was very good friends with. Her name was Frances Perkins, and she was the Secretary of Labor. Frances Perkins. Big deal. And Eleanor Roosevelt, after Franklin's death, would continue to fight for human rights. She would be U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. She would become a world ambassador to the United Nations. She'd be active well into her 80s. And pretty incredible person. And she was a lightning rod because she came to represent the kind of even more liberal, as they would say, than her husband. And so Eleanor Roosevelt would take stands. And then during the war, she would go visit troops and go to the front. Pretty amazing person. Once again, like I said, I like Eleanor Roosevelt. Well, to this day, there's a lot of people who really don't like the Roosevelts. Remember I mentioned he was a traitor to their class, they thought. I said that, didn't I? Yeah, really upset at him. How dare you pass these laws that we have to pay more taxes? And so they really did not like him. And so for years, I mean, to this day, and so I know this is a while ago, but you know, she's still around. Back in 1991, the first lady was Barbara Bush. George Herbert Walker Bush was president. He was a one-term president because she, therefore, was George W. Bush's mom. She's still alive. And as first lady, in 1991, Bush was very popular for a few reasons. His popularity would fall off a cliff in 93, 94. Well, Barbara Bush was compared to Eleanor Roosevelt because they compare every first lady to Eleanor Roosevelt. And there's been talk about this, and she just wrote a book about her dog, you know, kid's book, you know, Spot in the White House, or Vitamin. Her dog's name was Vitamin. So Vitamin in the White House. Wow. I made that up. So, Vitamin in the White House. And so, the dog was there. No. She's being interviewed. It was by Leslie Stahl, who was a really famous reporter. She'd be at CBS News and 60 Minutes, stuff like that. And you know, they asked questions like, what is it like to be in the White House? And then she asked Robert Bush, you've been compared very favorably to Eleanor Roosevelt. And Eleanor Roosevelt bristled. I mean, Eleanor Roosevelt. Robert Bush just bristled and said, I kind of did one of these stop, and said, we don't say that. name? Yeah, 1991. That name, and she would later say, she didn't say in that interview, but she said, but because people asked her about it, said, we didn't, if you mentioned her at the dinner table, you had to leave. She was from a very, very wealthy family. She's a Pierce. That name's not familiar? Franklin Pierce was president. That's her great-great-great-grandfather was president. And she married into the Bush family, which was a very wealthy family. George H.W. Bush's father was a senator, Prescott Bush. And so that's why, Eleanor Roosevelt, to this day, that's my story. I was still pretty startled, mad at him. And so there's a group that just despises FDR to this day. That's a name you don't mention. And is that mine or is that on the hall? It's all yours. I'm looking. All right, so those are the opposition. But going into 1935, it was clear that more was needed to be done. And this is where we get the second New Deal. Going into 35. Now, the economy had stopped its free fall. The GNP quit declining, and 1935, there was an increase. Not huge, but the economy began to grow. But it was still very, very bad. And I'll show you a graph of it, and you can see how much it declined and then how much it went up. But the issue was, yes, the economy wasn't as bad, but unemployment was still very high. Unemployment was still very high. And so I'll put this just one graph up here, maybe. And this shows the GDP from 1920 to 1940. And you can see relative growth. They come up with a trend line. What they do is there's always going to be growth in the economy. They figure because of the population's going to grow, they have more money, there will be growth. So they come up with a trend line. So they have it today. There's a trend line going up. We're still below that trend line would have been without the crash in 2008. So 20s did pretty good, and then there's a crash. That's 32. And it started going up here. Soon to be back above the trend line, even though unemployment still remained high. Because that's what makes it a depression. High unemployment means depression, even if the economy is growing. If you hear the term recession, what recession means is, literally, the true economic term is that the GDP is declining, the size of the economy. And so the recession can end. It ended here in 1933, but the depression continued because of high unemployment. The recession ended at the end of 2009, but the lesser depression kept going until 2013, arguably maybe still today. We still have really high unemployment. So that's what I mean by that. So the decision was they needed more. And the thing was, because of people on the left, because of the power of the socialists, because of Huey Long, because of Townsend, that gave Roosevelt cover. Roosevelt could say, we need to do more, because if we don't, then we'll get socialists. Or Huey Long will win before he was assassinated, obviously. We need to do this. And that's how things happen. If there's somebody pushing, it gets a law passed. Either direction. Today, there's virtually no left. But there's a big right. And so they really push, even though they're in the minority today. So, the second New Deal. These are the laws. Number one, they're all incredibly important. Social Security is the most important, the biggest government program, the most successful, the most beloved, and Franklin Roosevelt's most beloved. And it worked. The goal of Social Security was to reduce elderly poverty. The poverty rate amongst the elderly, those who were too old to work, don't think in terms of a retirement age or stuff like that. They came out of Social Security and unions. So that's not quite there yet. But those who could not work anymore, their poverty rate was well over 60%. Well over. By 1980, it would be down to about 6. Now it's about 10. poverty is going up pretty rapidly now. So, different world today. It's also called SSA, Social Security Administration. And what the deal is, it's not near as big as a pension as what Roosevelt, what Townsend wanted. He said $200 a month. When they finally, the bill was passed in 35, they would start getting pensions in 38. They really did a good job advertising this and telling people how good it was. And sign up for it. You know, you have to get a number, Social Security number, then you can be eligible, all workers. But it was about $40 a month.
Oh, is that where Social Security numbers came in? This,
That's it. That's why. Yeah. And so if you're a citizen in the U.S., you get a Social Security number. Yeah. What's your? You know, many years ago, it wasn't that big of a deal, but then all of a sudden, you know, computers and everything got to see.
What are they for? Like,
Then that's your identification for Social Security.
like, it's just that number, like your board's that number.
Yeah. So when you get a job, well, let's talk about what Social Security is. Everybody who works and pays into the Social Security system, and so they have to record when you pay. So if your number, they record you pay on that number. You're paying, and that's how they identify you by your Social Security number. And if you work 10 years, you're eligible for benefits. Now, it's not very big for just 10 years. And the longer you work, the more money you make. And you get slightly more money, the more money you make. But it's not a huge difference between the bottom and the top. But everybody works, and that's how they identify you. That's how you get into the system. That is your essentially government ID. And that's why it's kind of ridiculous that they make 17-year-olds go and register for the draft. Males. They started that in 1979. It's a Cold War thing. I'll be tough on the commies, which is silly because as far as I know, Soviet Union's gone. But they still make you do that. It's like a legacy. It's like they just can't get rid of it. Yeah.
Do you have to work 10 years at the same job?
Mm-hmm. Just 10 years. And so what the idea is that you have that number, no matter where you work, then your Social Security taxes will be paid to you, or basically that number identifying.
So you're like paying through taxes.
Yeah, it's called a payroll tax, and it's everybody pays a part of their salary goes into this. When you work, have you ever looked? Has anyone worked? And where they got a W-2 back? Some of you have, and you will. Trust me, if you haven't yet. And you see these letters on it. Anyone notice that? That's Social Security and Medicare tax. That's tax. That's Social Security. It's taken right out of your paycheck. In fact, what it is when they first did the tax, it was 3.2%. In 1983, they doubled it to 6.4%. But 6.4%, and then your employer matches it. So the total tax is 12.8%. If you're self-employed, in the 1950s, they allowed self-employed to do it. You have to pay the whole tax. So it's 12.8%. It's a lot, but the idea is if you pay into the system, when you retire, you get a pension until you die every month. It's not supposed to be enough for your full pension. It's only supposed to be a part of it. You're also supposed to have some savings and other things. But the idea is that pension or that Social Security with other things will get you out of poverty. Yeah, it's a big cushion. You never know what's going to happen. You know, I had a couple friends who, guys I just knew pretty well, and they didn't have a pension. That's one thing about teaching. I have a pension too. And I think, wow, that's, I get unemployment, or I get a pension when I retire on top of Social Security. I take less pay now. They don't pay me as much now. So I collect a pension later. So that's my payment. Does that make sense? And it's worth it to me. Trust me, it's worth it. I'd rather know I have that down the road. Most jobs don't have that anymore. They take a little bit more now, but the idea is that you have to use part of that for savings. It's just different ways of retirement. But I had a friend who had a bunch of his savings in the stock market and a couple of mutual funds, pretty risky ones. I know he's a knothead. Good guy, but not very smart. In 2008. And bad luck, he lost almost everything. Great guy, man. I felt horrible for him, but he lost. He had, I think, $290,000, he thought, on top of his other things. And he said it went down to about $10,000. Can you imagine what that would do to your retirement? And the thing about Social Security is that's why it's a cushion. It's not related to that. So we still have that. But he had to wait another 2 years before he could retire. Now it's tough. I felt bad for him. You know, I got, you have other retirements. And if you have money in the stock market or a mutual fund, don't put it all on risky stuff. That's my advice for down the road. Hedge your bets. So back to this. That's Social Security. Everybody gets one. Everybody gets a pension regardless of what they make. Everybody, rich or poor. And some people told Roosevelt, no, wait, why do you want to give it to rich people? They don't need it. And Roosevelt was smart. Two ways he was smart. He pushed for it because he said, if everyone gets it, no one can ever get rid of it. Because everybody's going to want it. If only the poor get it, those who believe in trickle-down economics, it would be easier for them to get rid of it, which they wanted to and still want to. And the other thing is this. He understood this. It actually would cost more to test, see who's deserving of it and not deserving of it. It would cost more than the small numbers of checks you would just send out. Because you'd have to set up a bureaucracy to figure out who should get it and who shouldn't. It'd be cheaper just you turn this age, you cut a check and send it on its way. Heck, today, you don't even do that. What do? Where do they put the money? They don't send checks. What do? They deposit it directly into the bank accounts. My paycheck for the school is deposited directly. Most paychecks are like that now. And that's why Social Security is. It's cheap. So that's why they did it. It's one of those things, wait a second, they don't need it. Wait. It's actually saves money. So everybody gets it. It's still relatively small. The tax now is 6.4%. And there's something else. Since there's not a huge difference in the pensions, it's all still relatively small. You look at it where today it's anywhere from about $800 to about $2,100 a month. Like I said, not huge, but that's enough. It's actually enough to get you above the poverty line if you're retired. But here's the thing: there's a cap, and the cap now. Then it was $4,000. Let's give you a number. The cap is approximately $113,000. No payrolls. Remember that 6.4% I told you about? No tax on any income above $113,000. So about 95% of the population, they make less than $113,000 a year. They pay the full 6.4%. But let's say you make $1 million a year. For the first $113,000 of that million, you pay 6.4%. Then the next $987,000, no tax on that. Now the reason for that is because the pensions don't get really big. Are you getting this down? What are you doing? Yeah. You haven't got Social Security down. Oh, there it is. I'm sorry, Corey. My fault. You were just giving this look, so I wanted to make sure.
Oh yeah, I get it now.
Yeah, I thought you had tunnel vision somewhere. Peripheral vision was messed up. Well, that's why they did that. And this is what we call a regressive tax. This is regressive. The lower your income, the more you pay in taxes. I pay the full amount. Most people pay the full amount. Well, let's say Bill Gates pays virtually nothing in Social Security. Virtually nothing. Because it's not even it's about 0.1%, or no, 0.01%, I'm sorry, of his yearly income. For me, it's, well, actually 12.8, because me and my employer match. So, most people do this. And the problem is this. The problem with Social Security is this today. Originally, that was supposed to collect about 90 to 92% of all income was going to be taxed. So they figured it was only going to be about 10% or so that would be above the cap. Well, it's not like that anymore. Society has gotten so unequal between the rich and the poor. And it's the most unequal it has ever been in the history of the world. In fact, we're the second most unequal country in the world of the industrialized countries. Israel. Israel's the most unequal. They're only getting about 80%. And so what's happening is that they're not bringing in as much money as they thought. They're not bringing in as much to pay out. Because I pay now, and some of you do, right? If you work and get a W-2, you pay that. Everyone pays it. This is not a federal income tax. Everyone pays Social Security tax. And what's happening is we're paying for people who are retired now. And then when I'm retired, you're paying for me. I want you to work 2 jobs because I want to live a life of luxury and ease, right? Just every other month, just sign the back of your checks. And okay, so do you agree I deserve that? You agree, don't you? I'm still going to give you grades. You agree, don't you? Only Emily's going to ace this class. Go. So what's happening is they're not collecting as much.
So we're gonna have to raise the tax to get more.
Well, I'll tell you what's going on right now, because you're on the right track. Right now, and for the whole time of Social Security, they always collected significantly more than what they were paying out in benefits. Significantly more. And they created what's called a trust fund. That's in the law. What are you doing? Don't bug him.
I'm not.
Yeah, Dale.
Did you call him Deal?
Yeah.
Deal and Quarry. Well, the thing is this. They saved it in a trust fund. And what they did is they take all that extra money from Social Security and they put it in the most secure investment in the world. The safest security in the world. What is it? Yeah, the U.S. government and the Treasury bills. U.S. always pays its debt. That is the safest investment in the world. If you want to make sure your money's safe, you buy a U.S. government bond. There's nothing safer. And the thing is this. They're going to start dipping into that trust fund. My guess is you probably didn't know that the government has about $17 trillion debt. They go, oh, 17 trillion. That's more than 15. But the point is, almost 40% of that debt is owed to Social Security. The government owes itself. They took the money from Social Security. They bought bonds. They used that money from Social Security in the general budget. So what is, we've got to now pay back ourselves. Or let's look at it the real way. When I retire, they're probably going to pull that money out to pay me back because I'm paying in with the expectation I'll get it out. So that's the issue. And then coming in between 2035 and 2045, that trust fund will be done. It will be over. So it'll only be payroll taxes. What's going to happen is somewhere in there, it's going to, by law, Social Security cannot be in debt. So benefits will have to drop from anywhere from 85 to 80%. I'm sorry, 15 to 20%. It'll be 80, 85%. Yeah, I know. I didn't. Benefits will only be 80 or 85% of what they are now. Does that make sense? I didn't. So it can't go broke. Social Security can't go broke. It cannot go broke. And if anybody says Social Security is going broke, either they don't know what they're talking about, or they want to get rid of Social Security and they're trying to scare people. In 2005, there was a real push by President Bush to take Social Security and have everyone pull it out of there and put it into the stock market. I shudder to think what would happen after 2008. But anyways, that's this. And you're right. To alleviate that problem, there's 2 things they can do, and the problem be solved. Just gone. One, and probably the easiest, would be to do what? Just get rid of the cap. Either tax everything or just make it $400,000 a year. If they made it $400,000 a year, there'd be no problem with Social Security for our lives, me and you. Or they'll raise taxes on working people. Make it 6.4 to 10%, something like that. So they'll make working people pay more. If I was a gambling man, which one should I bet on? Yeah. We'll have to pay more taxes. Problem. But the thing is, they're not going to let it go away. Half of the population today, half the people near retirement age, they have no savings. None. Yeah, it's starting to erase better, so I'm using blue. Is that what I do?
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to green.
Well, don't start now.
Yeah, no, I'll be worse.
Yeah. We gotta start with-
Make up your mind!
Wait till tomorrow, that's when you
Use both, yeah.
Okay, so one more little story about Social Security I'll tell you right now. The life expectancy, what's the retirement age for Social Security if someone retires right now? 62 is the youngest you can start Social Security. But 65, you get full for another few more years. When I retire, it's going to be 67. And technically right now it'll be 67 for you guys. They might raise it a couple more years. I hope not, but they might. I think it should be my age right now. Some days I want to retire. Some days I really don't want to. I was looking at this class. Looking at you. I'm not going to make it to retire. So, life expectancy.
3D effects.
That does look cool. That's actually pretty good for me. All right, the thing is this. The life expectancy back then in 1936 or 1938 was 55. Now, you look at that and what do you think the problem is? No. You're right. If a lot of people think that, but you're not actually correct. Yeah. People are actually, more people are, here's the word, living. Life expectancy is from birth to death. And what was happening back in the 30s and before that, to people before 1? They're all dying. All. 20 to 30% were dying before they got to 1. And so people weren't living. So the life expectancy is really low because that many people died before they got to 1. Life expectancy has gone up dramatically because more people are living past 1. It's not a heck of a lot different, lifespan, to when people get to 60, how much longer they live. It's not a lot different then than today. It's a little bit, but not a lot. The big thing on healthcare is doing is it's getting more people past 1. That's actually kind of a weird thing to think about. And that's another thing people will say about Social Security. The life expectancy was 55, so they never expected people to live to collect it. No, they were living, just not as many. If somebody says that, you know 2 things about it. What? Yeah, it's true. Not necessarily an idiot. That's really actually unfair. Because people have hard and complicated lives and they don't follow everything, but they don't know. Some people don't. That's not true. But you know, you're not going to know those little details. But it's when people you think you should know it, say it, that's when you can say those 2 things. When it's just average, you know, us average yahoos. Yeah, you're looking right at me and nodding. Yay. Thanks a lot, Katie. Why did you stop? All right, let's get to number 2 then. Oh, almost forgot. Almost forgot something. The big thing about Social Security is almost forgotten. Widows. The big thing was at this time was going to be for widows and dependent children. So write down widows and dependent children. Now it's for either spouse. But back then the big thing was, what if the main breadwinner died? What will happen to the family? Social Security not only will provide benefits to their dependents' families, but also children. Up to 18 and through college, if they go to college. Social Security benefits are a big thing. And I also knew a couple people growing up that two kids I went to school with and their father died. God, I was in junior high. And without that, they couldn't have made college. Yeah.
So the children aren't getting money out of it.
Actually, yeah.
Getting money.
If they're still, if one parent is still alive, yeah, it goes to them for them. But then when they turn 18 and go to college, then they get the checks. And it goes to their out of college.
Do they get to choose whatever they want to do, or does it like specifically have to go to college?
Yeah, it was college, and there's a couple other rules to it I can't remember right now. But
So if you go to college for 8 years.
I think there was like a limit.
Okay.
But I can't remember all the details of it.
College.
Yeah, without that though, this is a big program. And trust me, every year you get older, you start thinking more about Social Security. It's one of the things that's very weird. Also, you realize it's not that far away. I like that Social Security thing. All right, so the Wealth Tax Act. And the Wealth Tax Act, the second thing would be a massive, progressive income tax. Also inheritance tax, but we're just going to focus on income tax. And these are marginal tax rates, which I'll explain in 1 second. all taxes are marginal. And what it was is Roosevelt was desperately trying, well, partially to raise wages. High progressive income taxes for the very wealthy raise wages for the bottom, period. He wants higher wages for more demand. They both did this. The Wealth Tax Act increased demand, Social Security increases demand because it puts money in the hands of people who will spend it. But not only that, this also was punishment. He was mad about the coup. He was mad about those stuff, and he's like, I'm gonna make you pay. I'm gonna make you pay. And right now, people think you're the enemy, I'm gonna get you. And there's a couple problems with this tax, but actually it's gonna have pretty amazing long-term effects because it does raise wages.
Where does the money go?
To the government. So it pays for, we'll get to like the WPA, for education, we'll get to WPA in a second, programs like that. But the big thing is, it's not so much to collect the taxes. What Roosevelt wants, what the goal of progressive taxation is for the very wealthy to say, you know, I don't want to pay high taxes, so I'll put money back into business, and that will raise wages. That's the actual goal of it. But also, Roosevelt wanted health care and free college for everybody. That didn't happen. I'll tell you why tomorrow. I know. Thank goodness we don't have free college, right? Whew.
Yeah. Praise the Lord.
All right, give me a sec. I lost it. All right. So this is income tax rate history. And these are all the tax rates from 1913, the beginning of the income tax and the Underwood Tariff, all the way till today. Got them? You're supposed to memorize those. And this is the Wealth Tax Act. Those are all the tax rates. So, if you look on the top, for everybody's first $4,000, the tax was 4%. For everybody's next $2,000, the tax was 8%. For the next 2,000 was 9%. For the next 2,000 was 10%. And so on down the line. That's what we call marginal tax rates. Now, this is the equivalent of $66,000 a year today. So most people were below $4,000 a year then. So most of these rates only affect the wealthy. They're only a couple hundred at the top. It goes eventually to 79% for money over $5 million. But these are marginal. Nobody pays the full percentage after they get over $4,000 a year. Let's say you make $6 million a year. Which, by the way, you know how much that is today? That's about 92 million today. That's more than I'm making a month today. All right, so 79%. Let's say you make $6 million a year. How much of that $6 million is going to be taxed at 79%? Taxed at 79%. You make $6 million a year. How much will be taxed at 79%? Exactly.
Yes.
$1 million. And you said that too, what? That's marginal. So you only pay that for above $5 million. For the next $3 million, you pay 78, and so on. And so if you make $6 million a year, the first $4,000 is taxed at 4%. All the way up. And the reason they do that is simple. They don't want people to think, oh my God, I don't want to move up to a higher tax bracket. Just imagine if it was 79% total, then nobody would want to make more money because they have to pay higher taxes. So the idea is even if you make more money, you're still taxed the same for the previous dollars. You're still taxed the same for the first 4,000, 8,000, etc. And that's how taxes work today. That's how they work then. Now, if this looks complex, yeah, the math is complex, but only complex once. When I first started doing taxes, I did them all, my own taxes by hand. And what they did then, as they did in 1936, is the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, which collects taxes, gave me a book. It's about that thick. And it had just a little paperback book, kind of like a big, thick magazine. And it had all incomes and then how much tax you paid, just columns. And you just open up and found your income. That's how much tax I paid. Wrote it down, turned it in. So this is not hard.
Can you like change your tax, like when you donate stuff? You like that goes to change your tax bracket?
Well, let's talk about that very quickly. What you're talking about is a deduction. And what the deal is this. This is not hard. You know why they're CPAs? To figure out your income. And if you can lower your income of, let's say, charity, that's called a deduction. So if you lower your income, you pay less taxes regardless. Or for business expenses. You know, when I go to someplace historical, I can write the trip off and pay less in my taxes slightly. For me, it's just a tiny little thing. Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know those things. All right, tomorrow then we'll finish the second New Deal and Roosevelt.
What about like they're like
Yeah, back then there wasn't, but well, here, just wait one second, I'll show you.
so much that feedback needs.
Oh shoot, I never gave it to you. Oh, I'm sorry, I was gonna give that to you. And I'm gonna be gone 7 for I'm going to the dentist.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, just do it tomorrow. Hen, I'll see you right after 6. Let me show you this real quick, AJ. Just take a sec. Because it's hard to manipulate on that. You asked a good question. And it's 2013, but the numbers are still basically the same. See? Married, fired jointly, married, fired separately, single, and head of the household. So that's single or head of the household if only one of the people work. Married if they both work. So that's how they do it. And married filed separately, that's only if you have you're self-employed. Most people do married filed jointly.
Oh, when's our test?
Well, it's going to be Wednesday or Thursday next week. I was going to have it on Monday, but then I thought I want to get the stuff we do in the last week on the test too, during spring break. And so it'd be the end of the Great Depression and the beginning of the New Deal.
Okay.
Or not the New Deal, I mean World War II.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
See marginal tax and
Yeah, I'm talking about marginal taxation, and I.
say you forgot the whole tax exempt thing.